You touched on this a little bit. For both of you, what are your thoughts on modern day animation, particularly cinematic animation?
Well, most of the animation nowadays, it seems to me, the produced in the United States, has gone over to computer. Computer graphics is a style, and it looks all right. And if they tell a good story, I can sit through it. I certainly love Nemo and Tangled, very, very good. Up was very, very good. But what happens, I think, as soon as someone sees a successful picture done in CG, everybody else jumps in too because they want to make some money too. So what happens is you get sort of a generic look of the CG, which is starting for me to look like the last one I saw. So it feels kind of like puppets rather than the animation that I grew up with. And I would rather see something that had the human touch in it a little bit more. That one can exist at the same time the other one exists. You don't have to have one or the other. What I'm hoping is that with Dragon's Lair is that maybe we can reintroduce what I think got thrown out. Certainly in Europe, they still appreciate it. And there's a lot of hand-drawn animation that's still being produced around the world. But somehow we in the United States are lost in a fog and don't seem to know that we've thrown out something very valuable.
I always ask myself, why did I feel more of a connection to hand-drawn animation than CG animation? I very much like CG animation, but I felt more of a connection to hand-drawn. They felt very much like you get a model, a good-looking model, and then you move it around, and you move the expressions, where with hand-drawn, you have to draw them in every single frame, and you have to convince the person in every single frame that this thing is alive, and you have to put the work in every single time.
There's another thing that I think worth mentioning on this very subject too. I know that CG tries harder and harder and harder to give a more realistic, beautiful look, right? So there's shadows, the characters are shaded, there's all kinds of things, and now somebody is saying, how can we put pores in the skin? Well, why don't you just hire an actor? Because if you keep moving that fantasy or that magic of animation towards the live action, pretty soon, I'm not sure you have animation anymore. I think animation has a way of dramatizing visually in a way that I know no other medium can do. And that moment when the witch goes down those stairs and goes into that room, throws the box and decides to make herself into a hag. That is so powerful. And, you know, drinking the stuff and the thunder and the lightning and changing into this old woman. Those are magical moments that I have not experienced with all of the wonderful CG that I haven't experienced. I don't see the same magic there, or something doesn't connect with me, something doesn't touch. And it could be me. It could be that, you know, I'm just not familiar with what it is they're doing.
In the 90s, after so many of these very successful, wonderful films, critics did not seem to respond as strongly as with the films that are coming out, like Troll in Central Park, Pebble and the Penguin, as they did with the earlier work. In both of your opinion, what do you feel changed in that time? Was it the style or was it the audience?
That was us. It was us.
You know what? When we did NIM, we had no hands on us. We were the ones hands on that. American Tail, we pretty much had all Steven asked for. He wanted to approve the script and approve the storyboards. But once we got with other financiers, we suddenly had some chefs in the kitchen that shouldn't have been there, and they would demand that we make changes and make it simpler and more dumbed down.
There was another thing, though, really, script is everything. And you know that already. But if you don't have a good script, you know, you're not going to fix it. You can draw your fingers off if you want. It's just not going to fix it. So a lot of times when we would hire a writer, we hired a writer who worked on, I think it was a movie called Witness. We hired a writer. We thought, well, there's the name's up on the screen. He must be really good. That's a great movie. He got off the airplane in Dublin, Ireland, carrying his Oscar, and I knew we were in trouble. We tried and tried with All Dogs Go to Heaven to come up with something, and we tried and tried, didn't happen until Robert Towne said, what are you guys doing? I said, we're working on a story, and we don't know how to solve it. And he came up, he says, okay, tell me your story, and you got to do it in 5 minutes. And so we tried. He said, where's the urinal? You got too many angels. You got too much heaven in here. He says, get all that out. He says, make it just a dog story, a simple one, and you'll find that everything will go just fine. We hired someone to do Thumbelina, right? She came in and she wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and used up all the time for writing the script. And the script was not very good. I said, well, okay, I'll write the script. We've got 400 employees and they've got to animate, so I had a week to write the script. You can't write a script in a week. And so we kept getting in that same position where we were trying to hurry, get work for the staff. And the picture suffers when you do that. Had we still made more movies with Steven Spielberg, I think for sure he would have insisted that a good script happen before we ever started.
I've heard over and over Spielberg, on top of being a great director, is a phenomenal producer because he allows for so much freedom. So you experienced something very similar. Did he sort of leave you guys alone and picked up the pieces where they needed to be picked up?
That's exactly what he does. He's very, very good at it. And he has an eye for what will entertain. Some people, they just know. They intuitively know, and he seems to have that. We'll show him the boards, and he'll say, well, right here, what if you did this, 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 and this? And you go, oh, yeah, why didn't I think of that? That's a good idea.
Well, now you have this project coming up that is going to be in your control, this Dragon's Lair movie that you've gotten, or is still in the process of getting crowdfunded. What can you tell us about it so far?
I can tell you right now that I'm not sleeping very well at night, and I have what some people would call nightmares. I just call them pleasant dreams in which ideas come to the brain. And then I keep a pad by the side of my bed, and I jot down notes, things like that. So I'm already thinking about this movie, and I have to put it in my head really, really strong that we're going to make this movie. Ideas are happening, and I've got about 5-6 pages of a treatment written so far.
It's not going to be an expansion of that game. We're not going to do a movie going through that game, but we're going to get to know who these characters are, where they came from, how they get together, what do they want. Each of those characters have to have some background, and to get the audience to invest in them.
Are they going to have the traditional designs? Are they going to be in the traditional clothes? Is Dirk going to have the orange and the yellow and the hat and everything?
We got to do that. I mean, Dirk's going to have that tunic on, the yellow and the orange and everything. You're going to have to see that. That's kind of iconic in my mind. You'll see Daphne in probably much more than you saw in the game. You'll have to be surprised on this one because the ideas are still coming in. And you guys can write in. Tell us what you'd like to see. We're open-minded.
We got somebody that can read those, right?
Yes.
People watching at home, you can still donate. We'll put a link in the description, so definitely check that out. I like to end every interview with 2 questions that are polar opposites. The first one being, whether it be professional or personal, what is the toughest thing you've ever had to go through, and how did you get through it, for both of you?
Oh, this is going to make me cry. Go ahead.
Again. Oh, yeah. Well, the hardest thing for me, I think at one point was had to go through a divorce.
This is so sad.
And with children involved. I mean, it worked out in the end. We're still friends, and we communicate still. But it was tough, and I know it's widespread in our industry. I'm talking about the film industry, not just animation. Mm-hmm. And that, with the deadlines and the trying to get things done and happen, you end up with a 7-day week and 14-hour days that you're not shunning, but not getting home in time for the family evenings.
I don't think I can talk about mine without crying. No, it has to do with the same subject also, because I've married my life to the arts. I grew up in a family of seven children. All of them have gone their separate ways and basically don't talk to each other very much. So it's very much a family that's kind of shattered and spread apart. And I've chosen career in my life, career over marriage and family. And so the toughest thing for me to go through is the loneliness that happens with just being married to art. It's hard. It's really, really hard. And there's no comfort. There's no touch. There's none of the things that I think a lot of people go through. But I think it's actually fueled a lot of the things I talk about in the movies. Like certainly in American Tail, talking about the reunion of the family is very close to me. I know what that's like, being lost from the family and then hunting for them and then finding them again. That's the hope. And I know there's a lot of people that feel that too. So that's probably the hardest thing I've had to work through over the years. But I've done it. And don't cry. I'm a perfectly happy individual right now. I don't want you to feel bad for me. I don't need any pity. I just need your money. so we can get this picture to happen.
And finally, very last question for both of you. Again, whether professionally or personally, what is the proudest thing that you've ever done?
Taking the risk to leave Disney And I don't think a lot of people know this, but we were very gung-ho while we were at Disney and loved being there and loved actually. Don had loved the name Walt Disney since he saw Snow White when he was 4 years old, and
So it was.
only wanted to work at Disney. And but when we got there in the 70s, it obviously wasn't what it was when Don first started back in 1955. Don said the words to our production manager at Disney when we resigned, we're going to go out there and challenge you to do and make you get better. And in the end, I think from all we've heard from the fans out there is we were able to do that in the 15 years of our independent times. That NIM and American Tail, Land Before Time, All Dogs Go to Heaven were all movies that moved people, and it moved Disney to do better.
I can say the fact that when I was just a kid, maybe 4, maybe younger, I had a dream, and the dream that I wanted was inspired by, Walt. I wanted to be able to work in the animation world, and I dreamed that maybe one day, maybe I could even make my own pictures. And I've had the pleasure of having that dream come true. A lot of people live their whole life and their dreams never really happen. And they have to settle, but they don't get a chance to really make their dreams come true. I've had that blessing, and I'm just really, really, really pleased with that. Not too many get that.
I can tell you on behalf of me and so many fans out there, we are so pleased that you made it happen too, because I really wasn't mincing words in the reviews I did, saying that you really have made such a huge impact and some phenomenal films and just amazing moments that stay with you from childhood into adulthood. So honestly, thank you not only for just coming on and doing this interview and doing our silly jokes and our reviews and stuff, but thank you for leaving such a huge impact, not just on the art form, but on us as well.
Hey, well, thank you, Doug. I've always liked the name Doug. If I ever have a son, don't hold your breath. I think I'll name him Doug.
Doug, thanks you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.